Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?
Hey, everyone in, let's go. Huddle up on 3. 1, 2, 3, huddle up.
No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. This is your game now, gentlemen.
Russian 3, dropping 8. Uyangalele steps up, loads and throws. It's caught. It's pitched backwards, up in the air. It's on the ground, still in Clemson's hands. And now it is down. It is over. And the Irish have knocked off number 1 Clemson.
Fans on their feet. Rally towels are being waved. Brad Lidge stretches. The 0-2 pitch. Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Eller for the draw. And as the puck drops, the words that DC fans have been waiting to hear since 1974, the Washington Capitals are the 2018 Stanley Cup champions.
And now, welcome everyone to the Huddle Up Podcast.
We're not going to be fucking sucked this year. We're the Stanley Cup champions. Yeah!
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Huddle Up Podcast. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel. And we are glad to be back with you. Took a week off last week, celebrating the end of the football season. Decided to give us a week off. We have a special guest in here tonight. We'll introduce him in just a second. Of course, February the 23rd, 2021. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, as well as subscribe to the show and get as many people invested in the show as possible. We'd appreciate that. Sean, welcome back. A couple weeks off. Hope you enjoyed the bye week, so to speak.
Yeah, you got to use the bye week, kind of rest, regroup, make all the calls you can, make sure you got all the personnel where personnel needs to be, and I feel like we've done that. Once again, I've avoided another winter storm, so I'm pretty pleased to be just several thousand miles south of where that storm held off there. So I guess luck's on my side on that one. I don't know.
Sure. Rub it in. And we want to welcome in our guest. He is a producer at the MLB Network, but we're not going to talk just baseball tonight. Longtime friend of Sean's, and obviously because of that, I've known him for many years as well. Justin Daniels. Justin, welcome in tonight. How you doing, man?
Hey, man, guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I guess actually right now, you guys aren't that far apart from each other geographically at the moment because obviously we'll talk about baseball and spring training a little bit, but you're actually in Tampa right now as we speak, right?
Yeah, it was funny. Sean talked to me last week and was saying, hey, you interested? Actually, no, I'm going to be in Tampa. This morning I was in Clearwater with the Phillies. Tomorrow I'm going to be in Tampa with the Yankees. Here pretty much in Florida throughout the week and next week. So, yeah, it's one of the few times. And as you guys have mentioned with the snow and everything else, it's nice to kind of be south and kind of away from that for right now.
Yeah, I have piles in my front yard that like come up past my waist. I'm 6'3" for the people that don't know. Like it's just that I'm running out of places to put it at this point. Luckily, now tomorrow we're supposed to be up near, pushing into the 50s. So there's some good melting going on at the moment. But
goodness, this James has been putting away piles for most of his life.
Well,
it's just not always snow. But he's been putting away piles for good chunks. This guy's got some practice.
That is true. But shoveled out a little bit yesterday, but we are hopefully done with that. We will definitely looking forward to spring. But yeah, you can make sure you're following along with the show. If you're with us returning or for the first time, make sure you like and share the live video. We'd appreciate that. And honestly, guys, I was going to start off talking about the Eagles and Carson Wentz, but news out of the golf world today providing us with quite the topic. And if for those that don't know, and if you're with us, I'm not sure how you don't know yet, but Tiger Woods currently hospitalized after surgery. He had multiple leg injuries. The word is fractures in both legs, a crushed ankle. They didn't say which one. After a vehicle accident in California, had to be taken from his vehicle with the jaws of life. And so now he is obviously recovering from that. Not too long ago had a back surgery that was going to potentially delay the start of his golf season this year. But pretty scary news from the golf world for obviously the biggest golfer in our lifetime, possibly of all time. And now if the reports on the injuries are true, and Sean, we'll start with you first and thoughts about what happened is, this season looks to be in doubt and potentially, this is something that could be really career threatening for Tiger Woods. So the important part is, right now today, seemingly he's okay, health wise, but has quite a road of recovery in front of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not something you want to read about, and I haven't gotten to get to a lot of those details of the injuries. The last report I had read was just kind of the accident, and that the extent of the injuries wasn't known. Obviously, at this point, no real word as far as toxicity levels, things like that. We want to, I hope for his sake and for everyone, that's not kind of the cause of everything, but yeah, the injuries definitely sound serious enough that we have to, I would think your obviously first focus is to get healthy as fast as you can. But in that amount of time, like you said, with the surgeries and things he's had before, and with his health kind of in the state it had been in over the past few years, it's not going to be easy. It's kind of one of those scenarios where you just, I don't know. I'm sure he'll be taking it one day at a time, but it's just kind of it's just one of those, one more stumbling block, one more piece of like this just hard to arrive at comeback that we've all been kind of waiting for and witnessing. And we kind of got the zenith of it with that Masters win. And then it's just kind of been in and out since then. So it's kind of a sad situation. Definitely, all the hopes, prayers, wishes all go kind of to the Woods family, and I wish them the best all around. But it definitely looks like this could be kind of that last little blip. Maybe not the way you wanted to walk into the sunset, but kind of that big sign that should happen.
Yeah, the LA County Sheriff's Department, they released some information earlier, and the reports from them were that it doesn't seem to be any sort of indication at this point that there was any sort of DUI or anything like that. So that's obviously a bit of refreshing news, because he dealt with some issues in the past, and and that doesn't appear to be the case. There was some reports there was an event at the course he was headed to, and it was a country club that he was there yesterday, and it was a long day. It seemed tired. He was running it maybe a little bit late today, and I guess the road that he crashed on is kind of notorious, pretty steep decline, and is kind of notorious for accidents because of speed. So hopefully that's just the case. They did say that that he was wearing his seatbelt and it probably saved his life. So just another reason to wear a seatbelt when you are traveling at any time. But there doesn't appear at this point to be any sort of any sort of drug or alcohol in related incident to it right now. Justin, your thoughts on Tiger and his accident today?
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things that kind of jumped to my mind, especially being somebody who travels, and I kind of can almost place things in time and frame of other things that I'm traveling and other times that I'm away. And the first thing that kind of jumped to my mind when I start seeing that ESPN information that started coming in was Kobe Bryant. Just a year ago, you're talking about, man, here is this, on top of the world athlete, this person that we think as the best of the best of the best of their industry. And something like this that happens completely off the field, off the court, that you just go, wait, what just happened? And then you start seeing, oh, he's going in for an immediate surgery. And it just makes your mind start thinking. And this was just, about a year ago when we were talking about the same situation with Kobe, not having any kind of expectation like anything like this would happen. And it just pops up out of the blue. And it just makes you really, sit down and think, and you're just surprised by it. And like Sean said, I mean, there's a certain part of it that you want to just kind of push away the hope for that majors title at some point and just think about where he is as a human being and hope for his, health and safety where he is right now. But yeah, it does make you wonder after that point going, what does the future hold? How does this affect, his stroke? How does this affect his power? How does this affect his walking for that matter? So
right.
It makes you think a lot of extra questions that kind of go in that line. Like I said, for me, just being somebody who travels and just thinking about it, it just reminded me of one of the last times I was traveling last year and hearing the same news about Kobe Bryant of some accident that you didn't expect to hear. And then all of a sudden there it is, headline news.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad that you made a comparison to Kobe Bryant because I was kind of thinking along those lines. There's so many times, especially when they're at a level of a Kobe Bryant or of a Tiger Woods, but even just kind of your lesser known names. I think there's a large part of being an athlete and being on that stage where a lot of us kind of forget that they're human, that there is that level of humanity that that life is still fragile, no matter how many championships you have or how many rings you've won or how many dollars you've made. The same type of risks that, millions of people and billions of people around the world take on a daily or weekly basis, these guys are taking them too. And I think we just kind of take that for granted because, they keep showing up on our TV and they keep entertaining us or winning titles or frustrating us. It just kind of depends, who we're talking about. But today's definitely one of those days where you have to kind of look twice and you ask questions like, is this even a real headline, or did somebody fake this, because we don't expect it, and you never do. So yeah, definitely a chance to kind of, in my mind, kind of humanize all athletes, especially in this case Tiger Woods, and just remind us that don't take your athletes for granted. Don't take your own life for granted. All these things are fragile.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, and you talked about and mentioned the Masters win 2 years ago, and now kind of feels like a million years for multiple reasons. Obviously, the pandemic has changed time and how relevant time feels, but and in the same point, I mean, I remember watching him win that Masters and having this thought of like, well, can maybe he can catch Jack, and maybe this is kind of the second coming of Tiger Woods in a way, and since then, he hasn't really been able to recapture the dominance of that weekend in Augusta, and then you think of the surgery this year, and and now this, and there's obviously more questions than answers, and I definitely don't want to make any implications, because obviously right now the primary thing is for him to get through the surgeries, get through the next coming days and weeks, and just start to begin to recover. But I said the same thing to my wife when we were eating dinner and I was watching some of the coverage on it. Is just like, man, ever since he won that Masters 2 years ago, it just feels like it has just been this real quick just downslide for Tiger Woods. And it's such a shame because you go back to that day and you see the images of him getting the win and kind of celebrating with the other guys in the field, which was very different than the Tiger, the old Tiger that was just kind of standoffish and was all about I'm going to go out here and I'm going to beat your ass and there's nothing anybody can do about it if I want to win this tournament. And it was such a different thing for him and celebrating it with his kids. And it was like, man, this human version of Tiger Woods is almost more compelling than the original Tiger. And unfortunately, 2 years later, we're in a completely different situation with Tiger Woods, and it's absolutely just it's heartbreaking in a way. And the hope now is that that he can just get back and be healthy in any form or fashion. I think and this is another reminder, like the Kobe Bryant thing, that health and family and stuff like that is far more important than a game. Like golf is a game. Either of you guys have any other thoughts before we get to some of the football talk at hand?
No, I think that pretty much touches on it. Just surprise day, not a positive surprise, but definitely something to keep an eye on in the next few weeks. And I wish the Woods family their best.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's continue here. Sean, for you, this is something that we've been talking about and been wondering about, and where was the landing spot going to be, and now we know that Carson Wentz is headed to Indianapolis, and he will be traded there. The number 2 overall pick in 2016 will now be an Indianapolis Colt for a 2021 third-round pick and a conditional 2022 second-round pick that could turn into a first. The conditions on that one turning into a first would be if Wentz reaches 75% of offensive snaps, or if he gets 70% of the offensive snaps and the Colts make the playoffs. So let's just start with Wentz to the Colts, because I think the topic around the Eagles is a much more complicated one. And seemingly gets surprisingly more complicated like by the day, I feel like. But this felt like the most the most obvious landing spot for Carson Wentz. We talked about once we knew that Phillip Rivers was retiring, and Frank Reich is there, and you have a lot of young talent. You have a good defense, pretty solid offensive line. It just felt like, and I know like there was talk about the Bears, there was talk about a couple other places, but I felt like this made the most sense for the Colts and probably for Carson Wentz, a guy that he's familiar with, had success with, and really it's a team that I think is set up to be really good. I mean, they made a push at the end this year with an aging quarterback, and now you hope that with a clearer mind and maybe a new strength and conditioning team that that Carson can kind of regain his form. And I feel like I know a lot of friends of mine who are Eagles fans. I've kind of seen a similar kind of sentiment from them, is that they hope for success for Carson Wentz there. So Sean, we'll start with you. Carson Wentz, now a Colt.
Yeah, and I think when we had touched on this, weeks ago, the Colts were kind of my, like you said, my odds-on favorite for him to end up. And once reports started coming out of Chicago, and there was rumors that Nick Foles was part of a package deal, did that make me kind of lean towards Chicago and hope that we could get a deal done there? Absolutely. If we could have gotten the same return plus Nick Foles, which obviously I think makes you kind of question some of the reports of, what packages Chicago was offering and what was on the table. If this is what we settled on, I find it a little hard to believe some of the packages that were being reported out of Chicago, just because I think, Tariq Cohen or no Tariq Cohen, Nick Foles and just the other pieces that were being thrown around would obviously, in my opinion, be more appealing. Now, do the Eagles have different plans? Maybe they don't want Nick Foles at this point. Maybe that's that is what it is. But it sounded to me like Chicago had a better package put together, at least from what was being reported. But you're right. Indianapolis has a way better, I think, scenario for Wentz if Wentz wanted to go somewhere and immediately plug into a potentially winning piece. Indianapolis, from line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball to obviously they have some weaknesses here and there on defense, but as a whole, that unit's played real well all year. And from a Colts perspective, if Wentz at this point, I mean, they were a playoff team, and a few flips of the ball here or there, could have been ahead of Buffalo in the playoffs, and we could have been talking about them coming to Tampa. And it's not like they're asking him to replace Tom Brady at age 30,
right?
Like they're asking him to replace Phillip Rivers at age 107 or however old he is. So I mean, you're talking about the last season of Phillip Rivers' career and the first real season with their offense. They get to the playoffs, so that's what you're replacing. You're just being asked to be kind of as good as an aging Phillip Rivers, and I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation. And like you said, Eagles fans are kind of wishing him the best. I am too. And maybe the fact that the Colts are in the AFC and the Bears are in the NFC, maybe that had something to do with maybe taking a little less if they did. Maybe they were trying to get him out of their own conference. Of course, do I secretly hope that it becomes like a Carson Wentz versus the Eagles thing? No, I hope that never happens. Like a Super Bowl. I was trying to set it up, like maybe I wanted that to happen in a Super Bowl. It's the last thing I want in my mind.
Right.
If Carson's going to get his, get it on your own.
That. You never want that.
But yeah, I think it's a pretty great scenario for both of those two situations. And as far as what it leaves for the Eagles, I'm going to leave that for your next question.
Yeah, and I mean, I get you on that one because I mean, there's still questions of what exactly my Cowboys are going to do with Dak Prescott if he does not end up with the Cowboys. Like, don't get me wrong, I hope that he's successful because I like Dak, but in no way, shape, or form do I want to see Dak on the opposing sideline if the Cowboys figure out how to make it to a Super Bowl. I don't like him that much. Justin, your thoughts on Carson Wentz going to Indy?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys kind of put it on it. I mean, him going to a spot, regardless of where he went, there's that kind of idea of just getting a fresh start, getting a new clean slate to go with. I mean, he's had offensive line issues the last 2 years. Maybe there's a little bit of jitteriness, thinking that you're sitting behind those 5 men. And then you have that draft right after that where Jalen Hurts gets drafted, and there's a little bit of hurt feelings in that. And so maybe just going to a new clean start is a good start for him. And then you also talking about, it's not Philadelphia, it's not Chicago. We're talking about Indianapolis. The media there is less. You're not going to get the same type of promotion that you get. You're not going to get the same type of overanalyzation that you might get in Philadelphia or second or third or fourth quarterbacking. So I think that might just be nice for him to get a fresh start and just to kind of revamp things. So, I mean, more so than anything, I think that's a key. He's still young, like you said, way younger than Phillip Rivers. He still has a lot of potential. And when we're talking about 2.5 years ago, he was a potential MVP. So it's not like we're really that far off of where that ceiling was for him. So I think this is a good move for him. And it's really, one of the things that's interesting, and you're talking about not just this move or you're talking about Dak, but just the quarterback carousel in general this offseason has kind of kept us all, eyes glued to the ticker just to see what's happening and to see who wants to make the next move and to see where it is. But it does make that question too with the Eagles. Did they overplay their hand and did they force themselves into a position that they shouldn't have?
Yeah, and I mean the quarterback situation league wide is just is wild. We talked last time on the air about, of course, the Goff Stafford trade and what are the Cowboys going to do with Dak Prescott? And there's still some reports that the Eagles aren't 100% sold on Jalen Hurts as their starter, which to me is a little baffling. But we'll get to the Eagles here in a second. And there's other teams that they aren't 100% sure what they're doing. There's reports of Russell Wilson being unhappy in Seattle, and do I think he'll remain there this year? I do, but it's you never know what to expect.
Yeah, last I heard, 10 different teams or more have called about the availability of Russell Wilson, and I don't know what sort of packages they're throwing, hoping they stick. But if the Bears were really involved in the Wentz sweepstakes, I would think that they're willing to throw a very interesting package together. There's a lot of teams.
I mean, we can probably put a short list together of teams that aren't calling Seattle.
It'd be very Philadelphia to just trade both of them.
Like
we'll throw you Hurts. You got Jalen Hurts, and we got a couple of picks coming from Indianapolis. We'll give you that whole package
right back
for Russell Wilson straight up.
But like Tampa Bay, probably not calling Seattle. Green Bay, probably not calling Seattle.
Most likely, no.
You know, but there's probably, you know, Buffalo, probably not.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the shorter list is how many.
There's teams that. But you mean to tell me that like Buffalo and McDermott aren't at least curious? Like, there's like, well, like what sort of package? Like, they're still calling. Like if somebody had heard like a few years ago that New England was shopping Tom Brady, or like maybe Tom wasn't happy, the whole league would have been like, "So what do you want for him?"
Hey, Rob,
just
what do you
curious. Want? The teams that aren't calling are sending emails, so everyone's checked.
I hope Jerry Jones has at least made a call. Like, I know Jerry loves Dak and professes his love to him and everything, but I hope he's at least made the call. Now, do I think that the Cowboys probably can't afford him? Absolutely, because he wants to go somewhere with an offensive line.
Don't talk too fast. I've looked at how much money they're going to owe Dak if they franchise him the next 2 years, and I think you can get Russell Wilson for less.
Do it. Just do it. Go do it now.
It's all numbers. It's staggering the amount of money that, like, because it's quarterback top 5. If you franchise tag Dak Prescott, you're going to be looking somewhere around the 30 million mark this year, and you're going to be looking somewhere closer to the 50 million mark. I was like, I heard that on a radio show today. I guess because of a lot of these big contracts that jump next year, unless they restructure in the following 12 months. You're pushing, so you're looking at a good $80 million investment over the next 2 years in Dak Prescott without a contract.
Just to franchise him. Wonderful. Yeah. That sounds like a total Cowboys thing to do. But the other bit of news with Carson Wentz is I forget the receiver that wears 11, but they've already talked it out. Carson will not be getting the number 11 from him. Carson actually said he doesn't want it. He's looking for a complete.
Sure he does. Yeah, that's a brilliant way to come across that. You got to be kidding me.
Complete fresh start, so he will not be in the number 11. I'm sure there's some sort of Vegas odds somewhere on what number he will end up with. But
no, it's Michael Pittman Jr. And Michael Pittman Jr. is young, but he's got a good social media following. He's got a good following through video games. Like, he's actually marketed himself as a player really well for somebody that actually caught as few balls as he did. And I know how few he caught because like he got hot, and I got him on the fantasy wire. And then he didn't do anything for 9 weeks, and then he had one very good wide receiver. And it's an interesting story because he broke the story while playing Call of Duty. Like he leaked this story out. He was playing his video games, and as he's talking about, Carson called me and asked for my number. You're just hearing people in the background, I'm hit. It's just you're just hearing it. But Carson played it real poorly. I think word is instead of it just calling him and being hey, let's get together, let's throw some balls around, let's work on some chemistry. He just called him first contact from Carson Wentz was how attached to you are number 11. First of all, if you're gonna skip the whole humanity side of it, then throw a number out there. Look, man, I got $2 million that wants that. Just name your at that point. And unfortunately, it was kind of that last piece that's maybe Carson Wentz is just incredibly arrogant. I've never caught him considered in that type of scenario, but when you think about it, small, North Dakota town, probably was always the best athlete, went to North Dakota State, always the best athlete, was going to worked his way up the draft board, take a number, all these things, MVP right out of the chute, all these talks, and then the injury happens, all of a sudden Philadelphia hates you, and then it's everybody else might start hating. I think he just didn't know how to respond to everyone not loving him. And maybe Philadelphia drafting him was the worst case scenario if this injury and the fall off was going to happen. But yeah, it just looked so now for him to backtrack, be I don't even want it. It's probably better. He's right. It probably is better, but you should have realized that before you contacted a wide receiver. Now, on the flip side, I've commented on somebody on Facebook about it. It's a very bold play from a wide receiver.
Right.
to just boldly because he didn't just decline the request. He made it kind of this comical, and I know it's comical because even people down here in Tampa Bay, the sports radio, were making fun of the way he released it and how poor this came across for Carson Wentz. And I'm thinking if you got a new quarterback coming in, which by the way, there are no official reports out of Colts camp that Carson Wentz is guaranteed to be the starting quarterback. They still have a Jacoby Brissett out there who has started in the past and actually had more touchdowns, I think, than Carson Wentz last year. But that's not true. Carson Wentz had more touchdowns, but it felt like it. Poor Jacoby Brissett, all right, he's retiring. I get a chance. No, sorry, Jacoby. We just traded for this Phillies dirty laundry. But we I just thought it was a really interesting play when your livelihood depends on a quarterback giving you targets.
Sure.
To just publicly kind of shame him and be like, "Can you believe this guy?" Little gutsy play there. We'll see how the chemistry builds down the line. But yeah, Carson, just pick a different number.
Yeah, just get a new one.
Find an idol. Maybe it was Joe Montana. Try 16. Take Phillip Rivers' number.
Well, 16 I think is out because of Johnny U, and I think 18's probably out because of Peyton.
Was Johnny U 16?
I think he was.
Oh, he had a 4. I thought it was a 4 or 14.
No, he was a double digit. What number? I'm going to look that up.
Yeah, maybe it was 16.
Because I think that's why Peyton went to 18.
Ooh, that's a good point.
That might be the new thing of the NFL. Kind of like how different people squat on future team names. We've talked about before in the past with Vegas Golden Knights or the Seattle Kraken. People actually put a tag on that name, and then they hope that team comes to them and says, "Hey, we'll spend $2 million for you to release." Right. Maybe that's the thing for the running backs and the wide receivers to squat on a number, hoping that eventually have that number.
I would start squatting on QB numbers. If I'm a wide receiver, take the low numbers.
Yeah, and then we can switch out, and you can give me $2 million or $1 million, whatever it is. We're going to have this deal. We'll squat on a number, and then I'll take it for the best.
Unitas was 19, so yeah, you could go to 16. So 19 out, 18 probably out because probably not going to get Peyton's number. I don't know. I probably wouldn't touch Pip Rivers' number. I don't know. It just
is it just a brief topic we can talk about another time. But the whole concept of retired numbers, there's got to be a point where we stop doing it, right? Eventually you just start running out of numbers. Especially in a sport it's one thing in basketball where you have a roster of 15 people. In football, you have a roster of 60 guys, 50, 60 guys.
The Yankees, I believe, are no more single digit numbers, correct?
Yeah.
They're just gone. I've always worn number 7. Sorry, pal, you play for the wrong team to wear number 7.
Yeah, now you're 77.
Yeah, now you're 77 or 170. Yankees are gonna have to start wearing triple digit numbers.
When you start playing from a minor league sense and you have a 77, you're not making the roster.
Right.
That used to be how that went. You got a 77. Sorry, we'll see you next year when you get a different number.
Yeah, see you next year.
A lot of these older organizations, because I know, the Hershey Bears, the AHL, they used to never do numbers above 40. There's only been a handful of times where a guy who's come down on a conditioning stint or something like that has gotten a number over over the number 40. So and I think it's probably similar to kind of what the Yankees, Red Sox, some of these older teams that they've just always done the low number thing. So now you're getting into a situation I see here on the Caps Penguins. Zucker for the Penguins took a hard board with his legs. Hopefully he'll be all right. Giving help down the tunnel. Hopefully he'll be okay. That did not look good though. Definitely did not look good. But yeah, we get into some of the science and things behind numbers and choosing numbers. But let's try to tackle the Eagles a little bit. This is obviously not something we can really make total heads or tails of in one night. But we're 3 years and a couple of weeks removed from the Eagles Super Bowl championship, and the organization now, you no longer have the head coach, you no longer have the offensive coordinator, you no longer have either quarterback that got you through that season. Some of the receivers from that team are now gone. It looks like Jason Kelsey is on his way out. Zach Ertz on his way out. And I understand. I mean, over time and contracts, especially with championship teams. I mean, my Capitals are in the same boat. 3 years removed from a Stanley Cup. There's a lot of faces that are no longer with the team. But, not only from a on the field standpoint, but it seems like the front office with the Eagles is in disarray. You had reports of Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson, not talking for weeks, possibly months. The team hasn't drafted well. They haven't managed personnel well. They have countless injuries, even back to that Super Bowl season with injuries. There just seems to be just a huge issue organizationally with the Philadelphia Eagles. And Justin, we'll throw it to you first on this one. Where do they even begin to start fixing this thing? I mean, I know a lot of Eagles fans very unhappy with Howie Roseman, but with the exception of getting a new GM, I mean, where do they even start to fix this thing?
Yeah, I mean, the new GM has obviously been the hot topic, and that's what the Eagles fans want. I mean, for me, the crazy part is not so much that you trade Wentz and not so much that you got what you got from him, but it's the point to which you got to him. It's that point of you allowed certain things from an organizational standpoint to get to this level. I mean, even just something from the Hurts draft to getting to the point where in week 17, you're actually pulling Hurts in the fourth quarter of a game and then making Hurts mad because you pulled him. So, there's just a list of organizational moves that have allowed them to get to this point that shouldn't be. And I think, you go, where do you go from here? Especially when you've let go of your quarterback, you've let go of the coach, and you're thinking, okay, well, if we let go of the coach, it's got to be the quarterback that we're keeping. And then you let go of both, and you're like, okay, well, how does the GM still keep his job? Especially because, as you said, it's not just one bad year. It's not just a couple of things. It's bad drafts that have led them to this point. And I've heard even the jokes of, let's say that the Colts even give them the first pick because they make the playoffs and Wentz plays 70% of the downs. Are the Eagles going to screw up that first round pick as well?
Right.
And so that's the biggest question. So where do you go from here? It's got to start at the top. And I think even if it's not Roseman himself, there's got to be better scouting, and that's got to be the start of it. One of the things that we've talked about before in the past with Andy Reid and how he's one of the greats, not just obviously with the Chiefs, but even in his days with the Eagles, he really said it with the front five, the front defensive line. And that was where they made their success. And that's where the Chiefs have made their success. Obviously they've got Mahomes, but it's their offensive line that was what, really made things easier for them. And then when their offensive line wasn't there in the Super Bowl, you saw what happened. But that's been that key of success for them. And that's where Andy Reid was. So conversely, with the Eagles, if they need to do anything in terms of scouting, it's got to be better in the front five. It's got to be better on the defensive line to at least give those guys a chance. And if you're not going to do something in terms of changing the GM, your scouting department's got to get better.
Definitely. Sean, where's the first place? Because obviously we could do probably a series of episodes on the Eagles organizationally, but where's the place besides scouting that you say probably needs to start for this team and this organization?
Well, I mean, I've said it for a while that and you alluded to the injuries. I don't know where the fix is for that. I don't know if it's a matter of training staffs. I know the Eagles have made changes even since the Super Bowl. They've not had the same training staff the entire time, and it's kind of one of those scenarios where the trouble is no matter how well you draft offensive linemen, no matter how well you draft quarterbacks, even if you're taking some stabs at wide receivers that you have no business taking, when you're talking about that scenario, you're starting guys off your practice squad at any position on multiple weeks in a year. And you're starting guys that you weren't even on your team when the season started. Do I think Doug Peterson's partly to blame for the scenario that happened this year? Yes. Do I think, Howie Roseman and all these guys are? Sure. But even once you've built your roster, there's only so much you can do if none of them are able to play 16 games or, even 12 or 13 games. You got guys missing huge chunks of the year. And, Justin alluded to the offensive line. When you talk about Andy Reid and you talk about the success that he had in Philadelphia and kind of the ability to make the city finally relevant again, you're looking. I mean, across that offensive line, you had 2 tackles in Runyon and Trey Thomas that didn't miss. Neither of them missed a start, and I think it was something like 9.5 years or like 11. It was a nonsense stat of like literally Donovan McNabb knew at the very least, 1, that he had no receivers to throw to, and 2, that at least he was going to have time to find one of the rinky-dink wide receivers he did have. So he knew where those pillars were, and he knew to stay between them. And, for the most part, that kept Donovan McNabb alive, and that kept Andy Reid, doing what he was doing. And, you look at his ability to draft well, like you said, Justin, and, the fact that so many people pass on a guy like Pat Mahomes. You look at teams that are looking for quarterbacks now, like the Chicago Bears and teams like that passed on. I mean, they passed on Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes for Mitch Trubisky. And now they missed out on their solution, Carson Wentz. So, that's a real shame. But you look at this and there was talk that the Chiefs had to trade up to get Pat Mahomes. And then, the guy that was just about to sneak in there and take him was going to be the Saints. The Saints apparently had a lot of hopes of taking him despite having Drew Brees. And people, maybe it would have been a Jalen Hurts thing. Like, what are you doing drafting this person in the first,
Right.
But it's because you have guys that have consistently found offensive talent in places no one else had. You have Sean Payton that had success with guys like Marcus Colston, and you had, even a guy like Drew Brees, who was passed up by Nick Saban in Miami, and people weren't sure where he fell, and how was his shoulder going to hold up, and was he tall enough? Peyton seemed to think so, and that's worked out pretty well. And it's Andy Reid has consistently found success with products that other people had passed on. And, you're looking at, Peterson, who had kind of inherited a team, put it together. And, I mean, realistically, I have a feeling that this Super Bowl, ironically, that my T-shirt's talking about, is a lot to do with the coaching staff that he assembled. And the trouble is when you have success with a coaching staff, you no longer have that coaching staff.
Right.
And you have to kind of piece it together on your own. And I'm not sure Peterson was quite where he needed to be as a coach and as a leader to kind of reassemble those pieces that quickly. And things kind of fell apart pretty fast. But yeah, I like I think you got to do something about training and just – this year have been somewhat COVID related, maybe, but I mean, you're looking at the last 3-4 years of just key pieces going missing multiple times, and you're just never going to succeed. I mean, maybe in the NFC East right now because nobody else is any good.
Right.
Like that's like your only like when you're clinging to that hope every year, like that's not good enough. You have to be able to sell your fan base and sell your city and everything on something better than we're in the NFC East. I hope this is the start of it. And let's not, before I let go of Philadelphia here for a second, let's be very aware that there is still a very legitimate chance the Eagles use that 6th pick / trade up from that 6th pick and are still like people just seem to think, oh, good, they chose Hurts. I think the only thing that this trade tells us is that they didn't choose Wentz.
Sure.
I don't think
there.
Was Hurts fun to watch? Did he give an emotional lift? Yes. Do I think he's definitely the quarterback of the future in Philadelphia? No. I think there's still a lot of question marks. There's a lot of reasons, why teams didn't look at him higher than he got drafted. There's a lot of other scenarios. And I think in what they call a quarterback heavy draft, when you hold the 6th overall pick, you need to kind of look at 1, are we drafting a quarterback? Or 2, I want to look I'd look at if we are not taking a quarterback, is there someone else that needs one that's willing to give us a lot of value for this in this position and maybe step back. I'd have no problem with them finding the best other piece that they need either. 6 is there's going to be a lot of talent there. I don't want to see them drop too far and you're rebuilding, but let's not be just kind of content on like, well, Jalen Hurts is our guy. Let's go buy that number 2 jersey. You could be hanging up your number 2 jersey the same way I'm hanging up my number 11 in a couple of years.
We were talking about that. We bought you that the one year for Christmas, and
well, the last 2 active Eagles jerseys I had were the Carson Wentz that you had gotten for me, and ironically, an old Deshaun Jackson that had recycled itself thanks to Deshaun Jackson's career. And within a week of each other, they're both gone. So we are down to 0 active ones, which is fine. You know, I can go back to my Ricky Waters and my.
I haven't had an
Sean McCoy.
I haven't had an active Cowboys jersey since Roy Williams, the safety.
Unfortunately, the Cowboys are struggling to find an active Cowboys.
Well, that's true as well.
Jersey to put on anyway.
As well. But like I had a couple Des Bryant ones that like I thought about just buying a Lamb nameplate for and just doing some sewing work and getting that on there. But you know,
what was like the weird during the Super Bowl somebody tweeted a Chiefs fan that had like a Priest Holmes jersey. And like without changing the number, even just like pasted the M.A. It was like Mahomes.
Mahomes.
Like it was just like yeah, close enough. Good job, guys.
Yeah, good work.
Well played.
Give an A for
not even close to the right number. Like not even anywhere near.
And I mean, I think one of the things that's important to remember about, you know, because one of the things I've seen, and I'm not questioning that there's potentially a GM issue there, but like. When you go, well, we could have had so and so, they were there on the board, and you took this like those things are always easier in hindsight. I mean, and like Cowboys fans always go back to the fact that they passed on Randy Moss. Like the Cowboys passed on Randy Moss, yeah, but we also in that spot drafted Greg Ellis, who was a starting defensive lineman for the Cowboys for like 14 seasons. So, like, yeah, we didn't get Randy Moss, but we had one.
People questioned the Brandon Graham draft for the Eagles for years. You know, people talk about the Metcalf, and like there are a lot of misses that, like in hindsight, are good. But Brandon Graham was drafted with like some safety pieces and things we wanted on the board. I think that was the Earl Thomas year, where they drafted Brandon Graham while Earl Thomas was still on the board. And with Brian Dawkins missing, would Earl Thomas have been a great piece to add? Yes. Would Earl Thomas have been as successful in our defensive scheme as the Seahawks? Maybe. Probably. He's real good. But, you know, as you watched Brandon Graham develop and kind of become, and the strength of the Eagles winning that Super Bowl was on the ability to rotate defensive linemen because we had so many people that were as good as Brandon Graham. And so you have that kind of pass rush build itself. And even without any big names at the safety position, you brought in a Malcolm Jenkins, you were able to win a Super Bowl anyway. And I think that kind of ended up erasing itself, and people talk less about it now. But look, there's certain positions like safety where you're going to take some chances on a guy, and it's very hard to do in the first round because when you look at the 32, and people always talk about how few quarterbacks there are that are at a top level caliber. Safety is another one of those positions where, you know, name me 10 safeties in the NFL whose jobs are completely safe. Like who are so above the level of talent, like that they are irreplaceable.
I would challenge most people to name 10 safeties in the NFL.
That's a good point. Name 10 safeties in the NFL.
Go ahead, just name 10 of them.
You'll be like, it's Tyrann Mathieu and
Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott, yeah, he's pretty good. Steve Atwater's pretty great. Yeah, I don't know if I could name 10 without looking at a sheet of paper. But the point is, it's such a hard position to fill, and especially with the rules that have been kind of put in place, nobody wants to play safety.
Right.
So, you know, did the Eagles miss there? Maybe. But like you said, when you look back at it, there's these positions and these situations where, yeah, probably could have gone that other way. But, you know, like that's, you know, you pay people to make those decisions, and then when they don't, they're fired. That's how it works, I think.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, let's pause here, guys. We got to hear from our sponsor, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Notre Dame and EA Sports, a little bit of pond hockey, and, of course, we'll get to some baseball talk because that's the real reason Justin is here with us. So stick with us on the other side. Huddle Up Live.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. at your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order? You're listening to NGSC Sports Radio. Hear us live on ngscsports.com, where you can get awesome analysis on all things sports. Or check out our podcasts on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and much more. For our latest videos, subscribe to NGSC Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter at NGSC Sports, and like us on Facebook. NGSC Sports. We never stop. Welcome back, Huddle Up Live. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just remind everybody, we do have merchandise now. You head over to whatamaneuver.net, find the Huddle Up podcast, and check out the full line. We have our main logo design over there right now. Should have a few more designs coming shortly. We hopefully you can jump over there, make a purchase. Make sure you subscribe to the show. If you're with us on the live video, please give us a like and a share. We'd appreciate that, and get more people in here interacting with us. And again, thank you to Justin Daniels joining us from the MLB Network, and Sean back with us here this week. And the Penguins just beat the Cap. How comes every time we come back from a break on this goddamn show do the Penguins beat the Capitals in overtime? This is like the third time this season this has happened, by the way.
I mean, I'm not mad.
Unbelievable. I'm just. If there's the Caps and Pens play on a Tuesday night, we're not going to have a show. That's a new rule that we have going forward. At least they got a point, less damaging, I guess, this season, but still hurts. But let's talk a little bit about this one, guys, because this is quite an interesting story. A couple weeks ago, the EA Sports announced they'd be bringing back the college football game for your gaming consoles, and yesterday, I believe it was, Notre Dame released a statement that said they will not be included in the revitalized EA Sports college football game until they make sure that the rules determine whether or not athletes will be able to receive a cut of the game's profits. A statement from Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick says Notre Dame Athletics welcomes the return of EA Sports College Football, a video game series that historically helped promote interest in college football. Notre Dame will not, however, participate in the game until such time as rules have been finalized governing the participation of our student athletes. As those rules are developed, it is our strong desire that student athletes be allowed to benefit directly from allowing their name, image, and performance history to be used in the game. So this is something that I think was part of the reason why the game originally had kind of gone away, because there was kind of this big fight back between players and representations, and making sure they got their cut of the game, and EA just kind of wiped their hands of it. And now it's coming back, and Notre Dame's the first big name to stand up and say, hey, we want to make sure that our players are taken care of throughout all of this. And I think Notre Dame's in that interesting spot. They always are, because they are an independent. Like I don't know what all the rules are. Like say if USC can stand up on their own and say that they're not going to take part of it, or if it's the Pac-12 that has to do that. I don't know how all that breaks down, but now ultimately, I do think that there will be that this situation will be resolved, and I said this because. There's no way, I don't think, that EA Sports wants to take the hit of Notre Dame fans not getting this game. So I think that things will get resolved, and that they will figure this out. But quite an interesting turn of events. And then Sean, we'll start with you. here with Notre Dame kind of standing up and saying, look, we want to make sure our players, if they're going to be used in this, are going to be, going to be taken care of.
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, it shows just kind of the sign of the times that we're in, that we are in that era where, people are starting to recognize kind of what these college athletes are worth to other people. I've been very against the idea of colleges paying their athletes and giving gifts and things like that as a, beyond a scholarship and things like that. I'm still not a huge fan of that. But beyond that, I think once you are a college athlete and once your likeness is being used, it's kind of a fine line to dance on. But I think there's really no side of that fine line to stand on that feels right unless you're on the side of the athlete being portrayed. So, if I remember growing up, all it ever said was college football play, running back number 23,
right?
Didn't stop me from buying the game. Like I just, I feel like, EA needs to kind of decide, like, are we going to use the players on the front cover to sell the product? Are we going to use the players on the field to sell the product? And if you are, they need to be paid. And Notre Dame's in a unique perspective, like you said, of being like the one school that really, like, by controlling its own rights and kind of being the independent, it's kind of like a second voice of the NCAA, where they kind of get to make that stand on their own, and they have a big enough following and historically are that kind of pillar of college football excellence that you get to just make that stand and be like, well, we're just not going to let you use we're not going to be in it.
Yeah,
because they own their own trademarks. They own everything about it. You can't use them without their permission.
Yeah,
because they're probably the only school beyond like a military academy that has that ability.
Yeah. Because there was a college football game, I think it was like for Sega Genesis, that didn't have Notre Dame in it, and like the other ones,
they just weren't there. Like
you always
like
look for
North Dakota, like North Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah, like as a Notre Dame fan, like we know that stamp, the officially licensed product of the University of Notre Dame. If it's not there on the game, that the Irish aren't in it. But Justin, your thoughts here on Notre Dame taking a stand against EA Sports?
Well, first of all, I'll say I don't know how many times you guys have had this before, but I know the three of us are all Irish fans. So we're all
one of our co-hosts, Matt, is a Notre Dame fan. So it does round around a few times. Dave, the other member of the team, is not a Notre Dame.
I just want to make sure. I really hope that if Dave's going to listen to any clips, that it's like this moment where he realizes, yeah, Dave was right. No, he wasn't. Nope.
But yeah, so I mean, you're just talking about just the three of us. Obviously, Notre Dame has its massive fan base, and it's a fan base that goes beyond a regional. Which in this world of sports, with everything else, I mean, regional has been what keeps a lot of these other sports locales alive and keeps them up. But Notre Dame kind of escapes that. They've got the that you can tune in any Saturday of a football season, and they have a time slot. You don't have to question it.
I moved from Pennsylvania to Florida,
doesn't matter.
And I can watch Notre Dame any Sunday that I want to.
That they've got that, like you said, that huge footprint across the entire country. So to have them to be able to use this, and that's, I don't want to go as big as to say the social construct of sports and the things that they can do with that power. But this kind of is that way, at least in the college sports sense of they have some type of power and they're using it, and good for them because for some of these guys, it might not make a big difference to some of the athletes that are going to turn pro and make the millions of dollars, and they don't need the extra money. But it could mean something to the guy that's the kicker for the team that isn't going anywhere else, and maybe it's something for him, or just a recognition of anything else. For these guys, they could be going to big schools and paying money, and maybe their scholarship doesn't pay everything off. So it's nice that Notre Dame, hopefully takes that lead of setting a standard, which is not unusual for Notre Dame to set a standard, but to do something like that for basically the landscape of college sports.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's going to be something that we watch to see how this develops, because The game hasn't been around. I think 2014, 2015 was the last edition of this game, and it's crazy. Like, I know people that have replaced their Xbox 360 numerous times because they still play the game. If you try and find a copy of the last NCAA football game, a used copy
It
of
was
it.
never on Xbox One, correct? It was
Right,
just,
right.
like,
Yeah, this
right.
Xbox 360. So if you still try and find a used copy of it, it still goes for 35, 40, 45 bucks, which is, I mean, unheard of. A 1-year-old sports game for the new consoles goes
Oh
for
yeah,
like $10 now. So like people have been wanting this series to come back. So it is a huge thing. And yeah, like you said, I mean, Notre Dame generally has some of the highest rated games all season this year. Obviously the Clemson game, I think, was like the most watched regular season college football game in a couple of years.
one, I'm not sure we talked about, like the effect that not only is it Notre Dame and not only are there fans, but Notre Dame is incredibly relevant from a performance, like you were just alluding to. Notre Dame was just in the top 4.
Sure.
So you have not only a Notre Dame fan base that loves their team and might play this game, you have a Notre Dame fan base that's very interested in college football right now and knows who plays for. It's not a college. It's not the 4 or 5 years ago, the Notre Dame fan base that was just kind of aware that Notre Dame was there for a decade. And was just checking in, like, we still stink? Yeah, okay, go Irish, and they move on. But you have a very active collegiate football fan base in South Bend, and stemming out from that Golden Dome, the beacon drawing us all towards South Bend. Which reminds me, I've only prayed to it twice today. I gotta get one more. I gotta get at least the third one in. 3, the magic number 3, the Rick Myra, Ron Paulus. You got to pray 3 times.
Actually, Sean, 3 years ago we were in South Bend now.
3 years today. Yes,
for the Notre Dame Michigan State hockey game. So
that was pretty rad. Drove through some serious snow to get there, but it was fine.
Yeah, it was through the Western PA run there, but
you're always gonna hit snow that way. We survived.
If it's November through April, you're probably going to hit some snow up in the mountains. But
that was a good trip. That's where I watched the curling team win their gold medal while we were in the hotel. It was amazing.
Right, that's right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so it's obviously something, like I said. I mean, the game's still, I think, a year or two in development. Like, this is all very new. I absolutely believe that they will figure it out, because EA Sports, like I said, does not want to lose the Notre Dame money, but it was definitely something that clearly caught my attention. And another thing that caught my attention from this past weekend, and we'll touch on this one quick, and then we'll get to baseball talk. But the NHL took the game outdoors this past weekend in Lake Tahoe, and Saturday Avalanche 3-2 over the Golden Knights.
I must have missed it.
Yeah, somebody in Orange missed it, that's for sure. But an 8-hour sun delay, which sounds like a very odd thing to say, but we'll touch on that. Caused a 8-hour first to second period intermission, and Sunday, of course, 7-3 Bruins victory over the Flyers. That game was moved because of the weather, but I've always loved the outdoor games. It doesn't matter if it's in a baseball stadium, football stadium. It really hasn't mattered to me. I always enjoy it when they do the outdoor games. But this one, obviously, we've seen our sports imagery change very much over the past calendar year. Whether it's cardboard cutouts or covered up seats or any number of things. Toronto Raptors playing in Tampa. Any number of things, an NBA season at Disney. But this one was on a whole different level, because you're sitting there watching. It looks like you can pop a puck into the lake, and you see the mountains in the background. Just an incredible job by the NHL, and unfortunately, they had a beautiful sunny day in Lake Tahoe, but really, I think it worked out best, and I really feel this way for the game on Sunday, because I think that the Tahoe at dusk look for that Bruins Flyers game was absolutely more incredible than the sunny
spectacular
or the nighttime. It really worked out well. They adjusted on the fly, but just thoughts on. Personally, I think they should do a game at Tahoe every year. Just do one. It's awesome. Such a cool look. Justin, your thoughts on the weekend?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of coworkers because MLB Network also owns the rights to NHL Network. So I've got a couple of coworkers out there, shooting the game. And, I saw pictures leading up to the week and seeing them painting the ice and that scenic look beyond where you see the mountains. Because we've seen the outdoor games, as you said, in the stadiums, in baseball stadiums, in football stadiums. But to see this with just kind of that gorgeous outdoor look, and you're seeing the mountains, you're seeing what just feels like the way the game had originally started, and just that look of it was just phenomenal. And it's always interesting to see how that all gets set up and kind of the course that they go through. They had painted the ice at one point, went through practice and was like, nope, because of the way the sun was coming in, they had to repaint. So I mean, it's just an interesting thing of just kind of going through it. And you're right. I mean, would it be something nice to have every year? Why not? Right? I mean, we do this all the time with an outdoor game of some sort. The Winter Classic. They have the Heritage Classic in Canada. Why not? I say do it every year. It especially we're talking with the lack of fans the week that we are currently going through. Clearly, there's a way to do things without the fans and without the massive number of fans, and to still generate the money, still generate the sponsorship, still generate the viewership. So I'm with you. Do it every year.
Yeah, I mean, and they were talking on the broadcast how the areas most affected were the logos where they were painted because the dark colors were absorbing the sunlight, and I hadn't even thought about it. But the thing that kept coming back to me is if you've ever seen the movie Mystery Alaska, it had that feel to it, and it was just so cool. Sean.
Yeah, I think I don't know what the game looks like in Lake Tahoe with fans. I think it was just kind of a perfect target for a scenario where we were having limited fans, where you're trying to exist in a bubble of sorts, which maybe for another week the NHL seems to be boiling over. The cup seems to be kind of not really working out too well. Maybe we need to revisit this whole bubble scenario, but. Either way, I think in most seasons, you're going to do the outdoor games for the kind of the money. It costs a lot of money to put a hockey game on outside, even if it is cold. At least to have the ice service guaranteed and to have all the people there and to build the thing and to put the people around it, especially if you're going to have fans watching. And I think they chose the location because of that. And then, so a part of me says, if fans' general perspective was we loved that it was this gorgeous, picturesque, and like this thing, you're not going to have that if the fans are around the rink. So maybe what the NHL needs to look at is, like you said, they should have a game at Lake Tahoe every year. Maybe Tahoe's not the only solution, but find places that look amazing for hockey and kind of create one game a year where it's this NHL on top of the world type game.
Sure.
Where it's away from everybody else. Where even where there aren't fans, there's still hockey. And just create it. And then maybe one year it's just on a lake in Canada and you just find one that's frozen over and you just don't tell anybody where it is until like 2 days before, so that there's just people don't know where to go. And then all of a sudden it's like, a lot harder in today's world. But I would love to see a scenario where, people stayed out of Lake Tahoe because they didn't let them in there. So
right.
Just you're going to have to kind of build it on your own. But I think it would be cool if, even if it's not every year, if the NHL did create like hockey, like in the Himalayas, like whatever they want to do. Like all you need to do is have a space where you can put a rink and you can pay money to do it. And you're going to lose money in the deal because it's going to cost you way more to build it.
But that's what I'm saying. Just coming from, having been on the inside of the business, they're not losing money. Like the sponsorship that they get from an event like this is massive.
Huge.
There's a reason why MLB holds so tightly on to the All-Star.
So you're just making less.
You're not making the gate. you're not making the gate, but like the amount of sponsors that are paying because they know that that's going to be a broadcast game. It's going to be one of those games, like just because we're even talking about it, it's a game that, you'll constantly see on Instagram, on Twitter, all the pictures, every one of those pictures that has that, the rink on there also has a logo on there, also has a sponsorship on there. And all those sponsorships is just more money and more money.
Well, just to be clear, you're talking about the fact because you work for MLB and MLB Network, but there is a very direct affiliation with the NHL there, correct?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so MLB owns the rights to NHL Network and to NHL.com. So all the sponsorships are very, very similar. It's the same process. I mean, we all deal with it constantly. So the money that we generate in those big events, the Stanley Cups, the World Series, the All-Star games, the outdoor games, they're all huge sponsorship, events that not only do they get sponsorship money for advertising, but they get sponsorship money because sponsors want to be there at those events as well. So it can be something that you throw in as, here's our 5-year deal with this sponsor to be your, the league-wide soda company. And part of this is we'll also kind of give you a dozen tickets to this event, or we'll make sure that you have some event, because usually a lot of these big market events like this, like an outdoor game, they probably also have like some type of youth rink that's not too far away, or some type of food and catering and something else that's going on that's also connected to it. So even if you only had 2,000 fans for something like this in the future, because you don't want to have it too many and take away that scenic, even those sets of fans or the other things that you have with it, the before and afters. I mean, all those outdoor games, there's weeks upon weeks of before and after of like adult teams playing there and adult sponsorships. Like there might be a sponsor team that plays it, and that's just, it's more money that they're putting in. There's money that's going into it without the gate.
Yeah, I mean, it was what the Honda Outdoor NHL Outdoors at Tahoe, and New Amsterdam vodka and Truly Hard Seltzer, and like you could, and so you can start naming off all the different because it's right there. It's right there on the boards. It's right there. They probably had it stamped on the mountain in the background and things like that. It's everywhere you look, and anytime it's posted on social media, the sponsors are tagged in it and stuff like that. So yeah, it's you find ways to make money, and because like a game like this, there's probably people that are going to tune in to an NHL game at Tahoe because I went to a hockey game once, and that's got to be pretty cool to see it at Lake Tahoe. So there's probably more people tuning into that game than Blue Jackets versus the Minnesota Wild on a Wednesday night from Columbus. So and
if nothing else, you see it on the social media, and then the next thing there's a cool event that happens in the game, or there's something cool, and because these people are watching it on social media, the next thing they know, they're now interested in a Connor McDavid. They're now interested in a Johnny Gaudreau that maybe they didn't know of or didn't hear of, but they saw this one picture, this one play, and now it's just something that shows up in their timeline, and now it starts something else in the future.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's since we kind of talk a little bit about what you do, and we'll kind of transition to that and to talk about some baseball, because we're coming up now on spring training is pretty much upon us and whatnot. But so you are a producer with the MLB Network. So what exactly is it that you do? I mean, I'm sure there's no 2 days that are alike, but just kind of in a general idea for people, what is it that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm even more unique than a lot of people at my network, and this is just because I can be an editor, I can be a cameraman, and I can be a producer, both back at the office, which is in Secaucus, New Jersey, or on site like I am here in Tampa. And that mix and that ratio kind of depends from week to week and from event to event, based on budgets, based on events and what we need. For me, a lot of times I'm dealing with going out to different places, and right now I'm mostly producing in the field, and then I'm providing a second camera if we need it. I was at World Series, and mostly at World Series as a producer, so we would have a list of things that we had to do from a crew standpoint. when I was at World Series, we were doing a T-Mobile pregame show. We did VR 360 stuff. And then we also work on the World Series film, which comes out weeks later. And for the most part of that, I'm producing the crew. I've got a camera guy, I've got an audio guy, and that's what we're doing. But once the game starts, maybe I know what my camera guy is in the third base well, and he's good where he's at. And so I'll pick up the camera and go somewhere else and shoot as well. So it can kind of mix and match. And then at different points of the year, it might just be editing some of that stuff. So it's fun for me to have that mix and match, because if I were doing one thing 365, it would probably drive me insane. If I was just sitting there editing video for 365, I would probably get bored or tired of it. If I was on the road for 365, I would probably be divorced because my wife wouldn't like that. I think it's a nice balance to be able to do some of that stuff, and that to have the skill set's nice, because being an editor, I can kind of see what works well as a cameraman and vice versa, and just working with the different cameramen as producers and having that skill set. So I kind of just do a mixed bag of things, and it can be anything from working with sponsors on, like I said, certain sponsor things that they want, or working on features. It's just a mixed bag, which is nice.
Awesome. Yeah. Why don't we start at the World Series? And obviously we can hit on some things, and Sean, we'll let you, and we'll get into some kind of general stuff for the season.
Oh, it's fine. I'm here to talk with Justin as well. The reason I kind of facilitated this whole conglomeration of sports knowledge / brought Justin in to learn from the rest of us. We kind of did that kind of for him as much as he's doing for us. We're letting you kind of learn from the pros here at Huddle Up. Just kind of let you.
I'm drinking the knowledge. Drinking it in.
Just drink it in, But I know you're about to go to the World Series, and I was going to point out before we got going, Justin Daniels not only works for MLB, does a huge baseball fan, always has been all along, and not only that, but I've always known him to be a Dodgers fan. Was a very big Dodgers fan, and I know James is going to get into it. Justin, you got to work the bubble. Yes, last year you got to work the playoff bubble and the World Series bubble. So you were in the bubble filming, and in the grand scheme of things, not only did your life and your career choice build up to a moment where you got to film a World Series, but you got to be essentially on the field filming in a scenario where no other fans were really getting to watch this. As your favorite team won the World Series. Is that pretty much summing up what happened last year?
Yeah, and it was interesting because being part of the bubble, there was all these extra rules that were put in. So the first thing was we had to show up 10 days in advance and just stay in a hotel. I mean, like I'm in a hotel room right now, and I couldn't leave the room. Like I'm not saying like I couldn't leave the hotel. I'm saying like I couldn't leave the room for 10 days. The only time I was allowed to leave the room was we were given 1/2 hour a day, where if we called up the security guy, we would allow to walk downstairs, and we could walk in this outdoor section. And then every morning we had to go down and do a COVID test. So there was the only 2 times that I could literally leave my room. And then the rest, I just stayed in there. I got room service, and that was it. So for 10 days,
wow,
just sitting there. And what was funny too is
I was going to say, was there somebody sitting outside your room, like monitoring that?
So for us, we were on the 3rd floor. Like all of us who were in that quarantine section were on the 3rd floor, and there was a hall monitor at the end. So there was a guy just sitting at the end, just making sure. And if we got up into the hallway and walked around, he wouldn't have really cared. But it was just the idea of like
maybe they would have tied strings to the opposing doors. So if you tried opening it, wouldn't.
As soon as you open it, like a bell rings at the end of the hallway. Just wakes him up.
Yeah. So like. And we were stationed right across the street. I mean, literally within a baseball's throw of where the Rangers were playing at Globe Life. And so while we're there for the World Series, we're there 10 days early as it's getting through, the NLCS is going on. And as you noted, I'm a Dodgers fan. So I'm watching the game on TV. I'm watching Fox, and I can hear the game because we're right across the street.
Wow.
And the really frustrating part of that was the game, if you've ever watched TV and you ever know about live TV, the game is about 8 seconds delayed.
Oh.
So there was multiple times, like I think it was game 1, there was it was a close game. It was like 1-1 going into the ninth, and then Blake Trinan gave up a home run. And at first, I'm watching the game, and I'm like really tensely watching it, and I hear this like bang. I'm like, that's weird. And then I look over to the TV, and it's a home run. I'm like, and so for the rest of the NLCS, until we were out of quarantine, so like I think we were finally allowed out of quarantine to actually go into the stadium, I think by the end of game 5. So for like those first 4 games, I'm just watching it and trying to find a way, hoping that like whatever noise is happening is only happening when the Dodgers are at the plate. And if they're not, I'm just like, please, hopefully it's loud enough or it's not loud enough that I'm not hearing it and it's not ruining what I'm watching as a fan, because all is you hear the noise and then you just gotta, your heart is already sunk, and then you've got to sit there and still watch what's going to happen.
You said that you got to go to the stadium then during the NLCS, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So
like,
did
you have an escort, or like how did that work? Because you're still going to be like at the World Series, you still have to be quarantined.
Correct.
How's that work?
What they did was we were in one hotel, and then once you get cleared, once you go through that 10-day protocol, they moved us into a different hotel, which was now everybody who was in that hotel had been, fully quarantined and you're able to walk around, because
so you're in your bubble.
Literally the bubble is that other hotel. And so once you got there, we had to take a bubble shuttle that would take us to and from the stadium. And it would
the phrase bubble shuttle. The images that are going through my mind are hilarious. Continue.
Yeah, it would drop us off at like one tunnel spot underneath the stadium, and then like that's it. And the interesting part is that I never once got into the stands. I wasn't actually allowed to go further away. Like they dropped me off, and I'm right behind home plate, and the furthest I could pretty much walk was behind home plate, and I could maybe get out to the outfield. That was it. Like I couldn't go up into the
on the field level or in the seats.
No, on the field level. I couldn't go up into the seats. I wasn't allowed into the seats. I wasn't allowed anywhere. It's like I had to.
What a shame. What a bummer.
There was fans there, right? They had to keep you guys.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that they had allowed some folks in there.
So which was interesting for me as the Dodgers fan, like Dodgers are down 3-1 going into the NLCS, going into game 5, game 6, and then they win 5, and then we're there for 6 and 7. And I'm shooting 6 and 7 because at that point we didn't even have a crew yet. My crew was still quarantining, so I was just shooting. And so being on the field after they come back and win was like a really cool moment, just to kind of be there and know like, all right, yep, World Series again, here it is. And then, as you said, you're going through the World Series. I mean, the crazy parts of that whole World Series in the bubble, there's so many different things that are so unique. I mean, you're talking also not just a bubble of the World Series, but every game is at the same stadium, all the games.
Right.
And whether it's a Dodgers home game or not, there happen to be more Dodgers fans. So there's this weird feeling of like,
even when you're the road team, it's just kind of your jersey color.
Right. You're changing jersey colors, but there's still more Dodgers fans, and there's just like a weird feeling to it. Like I remember
so it's rigged is what you're telling me. It's rigged.
Kershaw gets taken out during one of the games, and they're technically the away team. The Dodgers are the away team, and he gets taken out, and the crowd was just bemoaning the fact that like Kershaw's out. They're like, no, leave him in, like, and they wanted him in because it was a Dodgers crowd, and it was just such a weird thing. And I'm sitting there like in the third base dugout shooting the game, which is right where the Rays are at. And it's weird to feel like you're right next to this team that's supposed to be the home team and supposed to get some type of emotion or love out of something, and like they're the road dogs here, even though they're technically the home team. So I mean, it was a weird situation. And then when it came time for the actual win, I mean, Game 6 is wild because Blake Snell is absolutely lights out, and when he gets taken out, I mean, he's coming in, and I'm no more than 5 feet from him in the dugout, and you can see the physical dejection on his face, but give him credit. He didn't say anything. He
I was
played
going to say, what was his general, like, was his demeanor? Could you tell if he was angry that he was being pulled,
Yeah,
or did he seem more upset that he didn't?
No, he was
prove.
he was mad that he was getting pulled. And like I said, credit to him for not saying that in the post game presser and not putting the blame on anybody. But you could tell that he was
and
not
still hasn't. They've revisited to him several times.
And
because I've heard all of the, like, down here, like I've heard, and they go to Blake Snell. They're like, "Are you like?" They keep trying to get him to admit that Cash screwed up.
Are you sure
he
you
won't do it?
Well,
Are you sure you don't hate Cash? Are you sure you don't want him dead? You know, and they're like,
I laughed during the Super Bowl. I sent a couple of like texts to my friends. I saw one come in during the Super Bowl during the third quarter when Tampa Bay was up, and they're like, the only way the Buccaneers are losing is if Kevin Cash comes out of the stands and pulls Tom Brady.
And pulls Tom Brady. Yeah, it was great.
This is the one. And yeah, so like it was just so wild. And then all of a sudden, as soon as he got taken out, you could feel it. I mean, even though there's nobody in the stands, like you can feel it. And then I finally make my way over to the Dodgers side for the ninth inning, and I am running with Kershaw from the bullpen because Kershaw by this point goes out to the bullpen just in case. So I'm running with Kershaw from the bullpen into the scrum, and it's just like what's crazy about it too is like 3 years ago, 2017, Dodgers are facing the Astros, Game 7, and I was going to be shooting. Used to be when the fans were there, like there would be a fan that gives out the hats and the T-shirts, you know, so that they put on the hats and T-shirts. And there was like some fan it was their job to do that. So my job in that day was to follow that fan onto the field as they're giving hats and T-shirts. I'm like, man, Game 7, Dodger Stadium, my team could win. This is amazing. And then sure enough, they get blown out. And there's people that sent me pictures of like Ken Rosenthal doing an interview with somebody else. And I'm in the background holding a camera. And I'm sure I'm focused, but the look on my face is just despondent.
So wait, is it the same fan no matter which team gets him?
Yeah.
So you had to follow, like, it's not like you had the Dodgers fan.
No,
you were just like, screw it. You had to literally follow this fan to deliver championship T-shirts to the team that just embarrassed your favorite team.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. So like it's like a sweepstakes.
Well, then you earned this one.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I'd have dropped the camera. I'd have just quit.
Yeah. People sent me like text images of them watching Fox, and they took the text image. They're like,
of your face.
You look real thrilled, and there I am behind Ken Rosenthal, just like.
Because you're there on TV, just deject. Like you didn't even get to have that moment in peace. Like you're like working.
Yeah.
I guess that's the downside.
So it was nice to kind of be on the other side of it for once.
The agony of defeat, yes.
And not just that, but like you said, I mean, the amount of people that can say that they were Dodgers fans and watched that World Series live is very, very small.
Right.
Like, because even if you're talking about 25%, there's 10,000 people there. Not all of them are Dodgers fans. I mean, there's
and of the ones that are Dodgers fans, how many are actually Dodgers fans?
100% point. Great point. Because there's definitely some people there that like.
It's a popular team. It's a cool logo.
Either it's that or because it's also Texas, there's a lot of Mexican fan base. So you got Julio Urias, you've got a couple of guys that
are just like a fan of someone on the Dodgers, right?
So like the Mexican fan base for Julio Urias was huge, and then Victor Gonzalez. So those two guys have this Mexican fan base that are showing up, which makes it even bigger. And so like he gets the last out, which was
it's a phenomenal situation.
But yeah, I mean, the amount of Dodgers fans that are there for that World Series, less than 7,000.
Yeah,
and I could play on one of them. I mean, that's.
Well, let's keep in mind that every year that happens, of the percentage of Dodgers fans that saw a World Series win live, when you factor in the last one, those people starting to die off. Justin, you might be one of the few. If the Dodgers were to not win another one, which I know they're, proverbial in kind of these favorites to keep it going. If they don't win another one for a while, you might be one of 7,000 Dodgers fans alive on the planet to see it live, and you got paid to do the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the crazy part. And to think of the amount.
That's dope. That's phenomenal.
that have that opportunity. I mean, I always think of it. I'm blessed every time, and just to be there. And I mean, I'm not usually the type of person who gets too caught up in stuff like that. But like, there's a certain point where after they're done celebrating and after I've done my work, and there's the big sign that says "L.A. Dodgers World Series champs," and they're taking pictures. Like, I've got to take a picture of me with that in the background.
Right. Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah. I'm going to kind of hand it back to Big Jim. I had that kind of line of questioning planned because I know you and I were trying to set up an opportunity for you to be on the show from the bubble because you were in there officially, and unfortunately, a lot of those games were on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I mean,
so we didn't really get a lot of opportunity to get you on live.
Like without even guessing right now, I can tell you right now, Game 1 this year is on a Tuesday. It's just
there you go.
Probably.
That's how they do it. Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So all of those questions I've been holding since I saw the Dodgers win and knew you were there. So Jim, whatever else you got going.
Yeah, I mean, so we've obviously, a year ago was probably close to around the time when things started to change. I know, Justin, we were talking a little bit but before we went on air tonight, and like I remember I listen to the Preston and Steve show out of Philly every day, and a couple of years ago they went down and they broadcast from the Philly spring training, and they were going to do it again last year, and then obviously everything got shut down. Two of their staff members were actually like they flew down and they talked to a couple people like in a hotel because everything was pretty much shut down, and so it's changed baseball, it changed hockey, it changed everything. So how in the last year has COVID and the pandemic changed? We know how it has changed baseball and the presentation and the ability to go to stadiums, but like how has it changed what you do and how the Major League Baseball and MLB Network operate right now?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I would say has to do with, I mean, obviously we test all the time. Anytime I work on site or anytime I work at the building, I'm COVID testing, which that's kind of a policy that they started doing probably October when when testing became a little bit more easier to access. So that's been one change. I mean, the other big one is we don't travel much. It's rare that I'm in this position where I'm traveling to another state. A lot of times we try and get as many freelancers from other areas to do some stuff because they're staying in the state and they've been there. In terms of some of the bigger changes, like for instance, this year, the thing that I always a lot of times come down here for spring training is what we call photo day. And it's basically just this car wash. Anytime you see like those, baseball card pictures and the guys holding the bat, that's where it comes from. It comes from photo day. Okay. All the players line up in their jersey, and basically 3 or 4 teams a day do it. And it just kind of rotates in this carousel. So today the Phillies were doing it, and usually there's all these different media from, the regular photographers to Topps has got a crew there, whatever sports cards are got a crew, or different types of like Fox Sports might have one, ESPN might have one, and they've got all their list of things to do, whether it's just like, give me your name and hey, you're watching MLB on Fox, something like that. And so one of the things that I do is we'll do these MLB international reads. So MLB is worldwide, and it's all in all these different countries. And instead of having all these countries that have a station come up and show up, to spring training, and there'd be 50,000, different stations here, MLB International handles that. And so I go as a crew, and my job is to get these reads for 30 stations. So there might be a read from Israel. There might be a read from United Kingdom. There might be a read from Panama. And so that's kind of our drill. So we do that. So
when you're getting those international reads, and I don't mean to interject, like are you targeting certain players that are popular in those regions?
Yeah, usually what it is, like MLB International gets the request from this, from the different stations, and a lot of the stations know, like if it's Mexico or if it's Panama, like yes, this is the guy that plays, is from Panama. We would love to get him to say this, but if it's not him, maybe these 5 or 6 other guys would be interested. So usually like the list is always like the top 10 guys that you can create in your head of the guys that you want. Now you go there with that list, doesn't mean you get that list. a great example and some insight for you guys. We would love to get Didi Gregorius today for the Phillies because he speaks like 5 languages. He's phenomenal. He's
that's perfect. Yeah.
He's awesome for stuff like this. However, because he had issues with his visa because basically the consulate in Curacao was closed, he is not on camp yet.
Wow.
So Didi Gregorius, who's with the Phillies, is not yet at camp because of visa issues. And that's not –
and I'm sure that they'll quarantine whatever once he is here. Yeah.
And it's not super weird. I mean, this happens a decent bit, especially with like the minor league guys and their visas because –
Well, and they only re-signed him, a week or so ago anyway. It wasn't like it, he's been under contract the whole time.
But you would think that a guy at his level would have a little bit faster path through the visa system.
You would think.
So we go there today, and
but
he's on.
Not everywhere in the world has the same me first attitude as the United States. Some of them are like, you are still just a citizen of this country.
He showed up and it was closed, so it didn't even matter. When the Met,
he's like, hey, can I get? Hello. I'm trying to get to the United States to make millions of dollars.
Moose out front could have told you,
Somebody called.
We go down, and obviously. He's not on the list, so maybe we try and get somebody else. But it's a mixed match of the game of things. But so like today, where what there would normally be on a day like this, 30-some crews, there's 2. There's 1 photographer and us, and that's it. And we've got to do a certain distancing. The other thing
I was going to try to let you know, like if you needed help at Phillies camp, I'd have been happy to get over there. Clearwater. I was going to bring Nick by. I was watching Nick all day today. Took a day off of teaching. Would have been able to help hold a camera. I've done that before.
Yeah, and then the other thing that we do is they've got different tier systems. So if you're tier 1, you're a player, you're a coach. If you're tier 2, you're media that has access to players. So like when I was in the bubble in the World Series, tier 2. And then if you're like media that's on the concourse that's never going to get close to the players, you're tier 3. So there are different things that are new and different in that regard. But yeah, I mean, a lot of this is always changing too. I mean, even from team to team, this is one of the things that I always find so amazing with MLB, and I'm sure it's with the other leagues as well, is how one team feels the rules are set does not necessarily mean that that's how the other team views them. So one PR staff might feel like, all right, you've got to stay 6 feet away and this is it, and don't even come close. And then another PR staff is like, the players are going to come out and you just tell them where to stand. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. Great. So it just depends on the PR staff of team to team. It can all be different. And so
I was saying maybe like where they're from, like their family members, like, obviously like a team from like New York or Philadelphia where like, everything was very like concentrated early and everybody got panicked from the virus versus a team from say, the desert,
yeah.
Maybe like,
even
or
just
a team from, I don't know, Florida might not give a crap.
Even just the personality of the PR guys is or the PR staffs in general is always
I
a
guess
big
that makes sense.
To me, there are some PR staffs that are like, if I send out a request, Rob Butcher from the Cincinnati Reds is their PR guy, and he's a very buttoned up guy. If you ask him for something, he tells you yes, no, A, B, C, D. This is when this guy's going to come. This is when, and he's very buttoned up. Then you get some guys like Blake from the Rangers, who's like, send me your request, and then when you get down here, you guys can ask the player yourself. Okay.
Wow.
So it can be a mixed bag of just from PR to PR staff of some guys are like, nope, I'm very hands-on. I'll bring the player to you. You stay there. And some are like, I told the players, it's on you. If you want to ask them, if they want to say yes, up to you. So from team to team, from player to player, it can be different just based on the PR. So when you add in the COVID restrictions, same thing.
Crazy. And a lot of people are going to ask Jim where Huddle Up ranks on the MLB's tiers, tier 1 to tier 16 is where we wind up, which means we're not only not allowed in the stadium, they won't even let us in the state where the game's being played.
No, that's true.
We have to watch it from a full state away at least, even if it's our home state. I have to leave the state of Florida if we're covering a Marlins game, which is pretty crazy.
But that's why it's also helpful that I'm an Orioles fan. So that,
because
I don't.
The Orioles are willing to overlook that if you're willing to. If you admit you're watching an Orioles game, they'll just put you at home plate.
No matter where you're watching, we'll allow you to do it.
Like, you're going to cover an Orioles game? You're like, yeah. They'll be like, you could just be the umpire behind home plate. We don't have one right now.
I heard a funny one yesterday. I guess apparently the Miami Marlins are talking about allowing 20% fans for starting the year, and I heard somebody respond saying, "That's really advantageous, thinking that they're going to double their attendance during a pandemic."
I believe I shared that on social media. I'm very excited about that. Very good. Very good play. And since Jim mentioned his favorite team, I had one other question for Justin that's outside, and it just seems very relevant now. Justin, you're kind of plugged in. You're down here at spring training. You're around MLB. Let's talk about Baltimore for a second. Being on the inside, because from the outside it looks pretty grim. Is there anything you've seen on the inside or from spring training that leads you to believe that Baltimore is set up to maybe be a contender?
I mean, maybe I saw a stat last week that gave like the odds for teams to not win the World Series, make the playoffs. Right. And the Orioles were at 0.0% odds at making the play. Is there
anything you're seeing better than 0.0?
I would say that the Orioles have a phenomenal chance of getting the number 1 pick.
Well, there you go.
I mean, they've got.
There's hope.
I don't think they're the worst team in the league, though. I don't think they're the worst team in the league, but they're at the bottom.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
It's like, if there are fish that feed on the bottom of the ocean or the water, they're eating Orioles, is what you're telling me.
They're link number 2 in the food chain at the bottom.
There's not a lot of links ahead of them.
An argument could be made that they could be 4th in their division. An argument could be made.
Above the Blue Jays?
No, the Blue Jays are good. Blue Jays are
the Blue Jays are good. Orioles are not. Let's not make that.
Orioles not good.
No, the Red Sox have sold off pieces.
Oh, that's true.
The argument that the Red Sox could finish 5th. So
there is an argument to be had.
So James, your hope to not be last rests on Boston not being good.
Better than the Red Sox. I'll take that hope every day.
Keep in mind, that hope has nothing to do with Baltimore being good. The hope is that Boston will be worse.
Trust me, that's fine.
And as someone who hates Boston, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'll take what I can get.
But keep in mind, Boston does not have a great track record of being terrible. I mean, they did for a long time, not recently.
I mean, the real issue is that if Boston is bad, their path back to being good is not far.
No, it's not. Whereas Baltimore, who's already bad,
they're willing to spend it. So, or most years they're willing to spend it, so they can get back pretty quickly. Baltimore's biggest problem isn't just what they have on their field; is their scouting is not great. Their farm system.
It's what they're willing to spend.
But their farm system isn't good. So even in areas where you're not having to spend a lot, they don't have a lot of talent at the bottom levels.
Farm system, scouting,
ownership,
team.
It's bad.
Roster.
It's not good.
I mean,
they do have one of my favorite pitchers in King Felix Hernandez, which I can root for that guy no matter what. Sure. I feel bad that he bounced out of last year because of COVID, and he would have been on a Braves team that might have been the difference of them, not losing to the Dodgers in 7. So maybe I should be thankful that he took that year off. But King Felix is great. I mean, they've got some pieces. Trey Mancini is going to be back this year, and
that's a huge story.
Yeah, and he missed all.
It's not quite Alex Smith huge, but it's pretty huge.
Right, and he missed all of 2020. So him coming back will be big. They got a few players that can be interesting in Montcastle or Santander, but much more than bottom of the league, 4th place. I don't see it.
So to paraphrase, the answer to the question, have you seen anything to make them contenders? To paraphrase, the answer is no.
No, unless it's contenders for a top pick.
There you go.
Oh, well, there you go.
Every year, like if the Capitals fail in the playoffs, when the Cowboys fail, like I always go like I'm kind of envious of these fans of like the Florida Panthers, because like they never have hope, and then I remind myself every springtime, I'm like, you're right. It is kind of nice to be a fan where you have no hope going
Zero.
like that year, like the Orioles went and they like lost in the ALCS to the
Yay.
Royals. I was like, that was such a fun year. Because like I never saw that coming, like it never.
And then the next year you go right back to no hope,
right back to mediocrity, and
yeah, it's gonna be.
It was wonderful, but we want to get predictions for the year. But before I do that, the only other question I have is like, I mean, obviously, and it may have even been the World Series thing, but what's one of the most interesting things that you've done or seen in your job?
Yeah, I mean, the bubble situation is completely unique unto itself. I think what's interesting too is, for me, just 2 months prior to the whole pandemic going on, I was actually able to go with 2 players from the Washington Nationals, who at that time were the World Series champions, Aaron Barrett and Adam Eaton, and I was able to go with them.
From Philly, Adam Eaton.
No. Different. Yep. Different player.
I got real excited there for a second. I was just, I know that guy, and you're like, different guy.
This guy is a left fielder, but I got to go with them on the USO tour to visit some troops over in Romania and Poland, and so that was like really interesting. Not only are you going to these countries that I don't know that I would have ever stepped foot in general, and it's been a couple of chances where I've done something like that. I got to go with Jan Gomes years ago when he went back home to Brazil for just to visit. He hadn't been back really since his playing days. So, but going on that USO tour with those 2 guys and then seeing the military response from them. And then on our way home, we're on this big, huge military aircraft, and I'm getting to have a catch, like a baseball catch, a nice 40-foot, 50-foot, really throwing it out there with an MLB player on a large military craft in the middle of the air. Like, it's just a wild experience, and thinking that,
I specifically remember you sharing those photos and videos on Facebook and social media, and thinking like, what an unbelievable job this guy has.
And so unpredictable. Like, it's not something that you go into that job or even get the job. Like even a week
photos out the open doors of the airplane and things.
Right. Even a week prior to that, if you had told me that would have happened, I would have been like, nope, I wouldn't have believed it. And so to have experiences like that, and like to be able to go all around the world and all around the country. I mean, for that matter, Sean knows me from college, and so like when I left college, I remember thinking like, all right, I'm going to be in this one little area, and I didn't really think much of travel. And then here I am. And I've, been in, a handful of different countries because of baseball. And I've definitely been all across this country because of baseball. And so it's given me more than enough opportunities and blessings that I could never repay.
And you've been to Denny's in how many states?
43 different states.
43 different states.
And
up to 43.
And the 7 states that I'm missing.
I was going to say, can you name the 7?
Yes. And the 7 states that I'm missing don't have baseball, right? Like they don't have some strong connection. It's Alaska.
You're gonna have to like flank in from another state.
Right. It's Alaska. It's the 2 Dakotas. It's Idaho. It's Nebraska. It's Wyoming. Did I get them all? So, yeah.
Have you been to one in Hawaii?
Yes, I did that on my honeymoon with my wife. So,
dope. So you need to take a second honeymoon to Alaska, is what you're saying.
So here's the plan. Here's how I think this works: is I've got to probably take a separate.
That's the hardest.
Now, Alaska does have one major baseball event, which is during the summer solstice when it's almost a 24-hour sun. They do have a 24-hour baseball like tournament, which is like slightly. It's kind of like not quite summer catch like winter ball for college, but it's something like that. It's like.
Gotcha.
It's the college guys that aren't quite in the majors, that aren't drafted yet, and it's just a tournament, and they play all. So We actually have sent a crew there once or twice. So there's a chance I could do that. Then as for the other 6, I've literally just got to park it somewhere and then just make the drive.
That's it.
Just go through the Dakotas, Idaho,
You're just gonna have to
Wyoming.
make a Denny's trip.
Yep. Just gotta
make it work. All right, Justin. Before we close up here tonight, we're not too far away, about a little over a month from the start of the baseball season. So we're going to put you on the spot. Do you have a prediction, World Series prediction for 2021?
If I had to take a guess, I'm going to say Dodgers, White Sox. Big on the White Sox. I think they've got all of the talent in terms of the offense. They had some of the pieces, in terms of pitching, that I think that they're just that much closer. The Yankees are the thing that everybody thinks they're big and bad, and they've got all the talent there. But you got to worry about the health of their top end players, Judge, Stanton, and their pitching staff isn't as deep as it used to be, especially now that they don't have Tanaka. If there's ever any issues with Cole, you can just put their season in the hole. That's it. It's gone. And they've got an uphill battle just to get a lot of stock in him. Yeah, they've got an uphill battle just to get through their own division. I mean, I think the Blue Jays are going to be better, and the Rays constantly find a way.
And the Orioles can't be worse.
Yeah. So, the Dodgers, the biggest issue with the Dodgers repeating would be the Padres. I mean, the Padres might be the second best team in the entire league.
Well, they're spending their money, that's for sure.
They're spending their money, but the thing I always say is, like, thank goodness they're spending their money, because how many teams, like these owners and some of the GMs, they make it seem like they don't have the money, or they don't want to spend the money, or they're just really capped against it. These teams have money, spend it.
We're not talking about the Orioles anymore.
Yeah,
yeah, that conversation's gone.
So, to see that the Padres are spending the money, good for them.
Good for them. They haven't for a long time.
Yeah,
they kind of just sat there in their little own hole, and so that's a good point.
And when and they only have a few more years left of some of their players, so like you take that, that risk, you take that chance. I mean, it's kind of something that Jim and I have talked about before with like the Penguins and Malkin and Crosby. Like, you've got a window, maximize that window. Like, this is your chance, maximize it now. So if you wait until Machado in 2 or 3 years is past that point, maybe all things start falling down. So like, you've got the window, go for it. So the Padres have done everything right in this offseason, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Off seasons could be, you could win the World Series of the offseason and not make the playoffs.
You say the Dallas Cowboys have won a lot of
sometimes you pay Cliff Lee and you pay all these other pitchers to win you a World Series, and the Yankees still get you. So you never know.
We still at least got them there. So, but yeah, I mean, if I'm guessing,
I think the Padres would take that. The Padres, if they just got in, would be like, see,
if I'm saying Dodgers, White Sox. But yeah, if you go up and down the list, Braves, Padres. If I had to take a guess, I wouldn't be surprised if the Brewers are the other wild card team along with the Padres, just because
like a sneaky team that could get in.
Well, here's the thing: as good as the Mets are, and as good as I think Lindor makes them, the rest of that division is really good. The Phillies are good. I mean, the Phillies were a really good team last year. Their pitching wasn't good. Their pitching is a little bit better. The Marlins are an up-and-coming team. It might be tougher to get to 85, 90 wins than you think in that division. And if you're not the number one team, then you're sitting there, how do I get to that wild card spot? Whereas the Brewers,
without the extra wins, yeah.
Right, the Brewers might be behind the Cardinals, who got paid to take Nolan Arenado. The Brewers might be behind them because they're going to steal wins from the Cubs, from the Pirates, who aren't even showing up. So, the Brewers might be the two on there. And the same thing, the Padres will have little to nobody other than the Dodgers to deal with, so they'll rank up. I think the Dodgers and the Padres are about as locked as you can get for our playoffs.
Nice. All right, very good. Justin, if you have anything to plug, any social medias, anything like that people get connected with you. Otherwise, again, thank you for joining us. It was a blast.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. I keep myself tuned to you guys in the social media, and I follow you guys. So anybody else who's watching it, they should be following you guys as well. It's always an enjoyable time to talk to you guys, whether it's on something like this or back and forth through Facebook and Twitter messages.
Yeah, no doubt.
Totally. And I look forward to chilling with you here over the next couple of days. I'm sure we're going to find time to somehow hook up here in the next week.
Yeah, I was given my camera guy gave me a couple of restaurant suggestions for us. So
very nice.
Sean, where can people follow you?
Well, as usual, you can follow me on the Twitter at Sean Shine State. It's SHAWN, Sean Shine State. I just wanted to blast through a couple moments in sports history. We touched on the gold medal curling event that happened on the 24th back in 2018. But yesterday, also Winter Olympic history. In 1980, yesterday, the Miracle on Ice. The United States beat the Soviets in essentially a qualifying game. But also back in 1985 on today's date, another big hockey name, Patrick Roy, made his NHL debut for the Montreal Canadiens on today's date back in 1985. So a pretty cool hockey day. But either way, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks especially to Justin Daniels, my man, coming in and putting his couple cents in and letting us know the scoop on the Orioles in Major League Baseball. Godspeed, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, of course, you can follow me at Big Jim Sports. Make sure you're following the show. We are at Huddle Up Podcast on Facebook and Twitter. We are at Huddle Up Pod on Instagram. Subscribe to the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, all other podcast platforms. Check out our home network, of course, NGSC Sports at ngscsports.com. Until next time, guys, make sure you stay safe, stay smart, and as always, go for the win. Huddle Up Podcast is sponsored by Arena Eats. Log on to the website arenaeats.app, that's arenaeats.app, for the ultimate fan experience. At your favorite sports venue, Arena Eats mobile app, pre-order, express pickup, and in-seat delivery. How do you place your order?